Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into a really interesting mix of what was happening in Nigeria, all pulled from the headlines on May 23rd, 2025. It's quite a snapshot. Economics, politics, security, even some surprising facts thrown in.
Exactly. We've got this collection of newspaper headlines just from that one day. It gives you a real flavor of the conversations, the key events shaping things across the country.
Yeah, and our plan, our mission, if you like, is to dig a bit deeper than just those headlines. We want to pull out the really significant bits, add some context,
Try and get a clearer sense of the forces at play.
Precisely. So there's a lot here. Where do you think we should start trying to unpack it all?
Well, given how much it affects daily life, the economy seems like a good place to kick off. There was definitely a lot of movement reported in business and finance on the 23rd.
Absolutely. And the one that, well, it really grabbed my attention straight away was the Dangote refinery news, apparently slashing petrol prices by N15 nationwide.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that hits everyone directly, right?
It really does. A price cut like that, it has the potential for some pretty significant ripple effects. Lower fuel costs could ease transport costs.
It helps with everything else.
Exactly. Maybe lower prices for goods, for services. The big question, of course, is sustainability. How long will it last? What are the wider impacts? But yeah, the key insight is that potential relief for people and businesses.
Right. And sticking with big money, Nigeria apparently put $100 million into the ECOWAS Bank for investment and development, EBID. Okay, so what's the thinking behind that kind of investment?
Well, think of EBID as basically a regional development bank for West Africa. It funds projects across the region. So Nigeria's $100 million contribution, it boosts its standing within that institution.
So it's about influence as well.
It's partly regional cooperation, yeah, but also strategic. It gives Nigeria more say in the bank's priorities and potentially, leverage EBID funds for Nigeria's own big infrastructure projects down the line could unlock future growth.
Interesting. And staying regional, Festus Keyamo was appointed chairman of West African ministers. That sounds like another position with potentially quite a bit of clout.
It does. The headlines didn't spell out all the specifics, but chairing a group like that, well, it suggests a pretty major role in shaping regional policy, coordinating efforts within ECOWAS.
Right. Okay, switching focus a bit to how the government funds itself. The CBN's Treasury bills auction. It pulled in a huge N1.17 trillion in bids.
Wow.
Yeah. And the government's also planning to raise another N300 billion through bonds. That's just a lot of financial activity. What does that tell us?
Well, the huge interest in Treasury bills are basically short-term government IOUs, suggest that there's a lot of spare cash floating around in the Nigerian financial system. Investors see them as a pretty safe bet for the short term. And the government issuing more bonds, that points to their ongoing need to borrow money to fund operations, maybe big projects.
Okay, now here's a really eye-opening one for me. The Nigerian exchange, the NGX, reportedly saw foreign transactions plummet, like a 91% fall down to just N63 billion.
Yeah, that's dramatic.
91%. What could possibly be driving such a massive shift like that?
Well, a drop that steep. It's not just a number. It could signal a serious dip in confidence from international investors. Could be many things driving it, couldn't it? Maybe wider global economic jitters making people pull back from emerging markets. Or maybe something specific about Nigeria's policies or currency stability concerns.
Right.
The key takeaway is the potential need for policies to kind of reassure those foreign investors, stabilize things, stop more money leaving.
Definitely one to watch closely.
Yeah.
Okay, on a more positive note, perhaps, Femi Otedola was quoted praising President Tinubu and the CBN Governor Cardoso's reforms.
Yes.
Apparently because First Holdco is back in profit. It seems like a fairly direct link, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Policy impact on business.
It suggests that, yeah, at least from his perspective, you have a major player in the economy seeing a positive effect on their bottom line from the current reforms. It's just one voice, of course, but Otedola is influential, so his comments carry weight. It's like a bit of validation for the government's economic path from a big business angle.
And back to Dangote, besides the petrol price cut, they've also apparently got a distributor lined up for polypropylene exports.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like expansion, maybe diversifying Nigeria's exports beyond just the usual raw materials.
Exactly. That's a good sign. Moving into manufactured goods like polypropylene, it's really crucial for long-term economic health, getting away from just relying on oil.
We also saw a quick mention, FG directing AMCON to start its shutdown process. That's been talked about for a while, hasn't it?
Yes, AMCON. It was set up after the financial crisis back in the late 2000s, basically to take on bad loans from banks. So telling them to start shutting down suggests they feel it's mostly done its job stabilizing things. But the exact timeline, what happens with any remaining assets, that's still worth watching.
Looking forward now, Nigeria is reportedly investing a massive $1 billion to upgrade its telecom infrastructure.
That sounds, well, essential, really.
Oh, absolutely critical. Good telecoms infrastructure is just the foundation for a modern digital economy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that kind of money could mean big improvements in internet, mobile networks, getting more people connected, essential for growth, social development, everything.
And the maritime sector seems to be getting a lot of focus, too. A new maritime bank approved by the president, its president appointed, plus Governor Oyetola heading up a regional maritime development bank for the Southwest.
Yeah, it looks like a concerted push there.
Like a specific strategy?
It seems like it. Nigeria's got huge potential in maritime, ports, shipping, all that. So these moves suggest a deliberate plan to develop it. Could mean more trade, jobs, better regional cooperation at sea.
And it's not just the federal government making plans. Southwest governors are apparently launching their own regional economic master plan.
That's interesting. Hints at more joined-up thinking within that region. Can that work well? Regional plans.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When regions cooperate like that, pool resources, tackle shared challenges together, it can be really effective. Target growth much better.
And finally, on the economy, the FG plans industrial hubs. Kano, Abia, Ogun.
Right. That's a classic development strategy.
It's trying to boost manufacturing.
Exactly. Attract investment, get factories going, create jobs, key for long-term development, and maybe help spread the economic activity around the country a bit more.
Okay. Quite a lot happening on the economic front then. Let's pivot now to politics and governance. Seems like plenty going on there, too.
Indeed. One headline that really stood out involved the federal government filing criminal defamation charges against Senator Natasha.
Right, I saw that. And the people they plan to call as witnesses, Akpabio, Yahaya Bello.
Exactly, the Senate president, a former governor. It suggests this could become a pretty major legal and political fight.
Definitely have that potential. And speaking of legal battles, there was also the news about the chief judge moving 6 lawsuits related to the Rivers State emergency rule, moving them to Abuja.
Mm-hmm. That tells you the political heat in Rivers is still very high.
Why move them to Abuja, usually?
Well, likely to try and ensure impartiality, take it out of the immediate local context, and maybe centralize all the legal challenges around that whole situation. Shows how seriously the judiciary is taking it.
And the Rivers drama doesn't stop there. President Tinubu is sending the state budget directly to the National Assembly.
Yeah, that caused a stir.
I saw Kariwa called it unconstitutional. Some Sands challenging it too. But then Tinubu saying he's not forcing anyone to join the APC. Lots of different angles.
It really shows the tangled politics, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sending the budget like that might be seen as, well, a way to bypass the gridlock in Rivers itself. But the legal challenges highlight the big constitutional questions. And Tinubu's comment on party membership, probably trying to counter narratives about APC dominance.
And speaking of the APC, reports say the National Assembly and the party's governors have backed Tinubu as their sole candidate for 2027 already.
That's a strong consolidation of his position within the party very early on.
But not everyone's on board. I saw Amaechi and Ihedioha reportedly heading anti-Tinubu coalition committees.
Exactly. So while the APC leadership seems unified for now, that signals significant opposition is already mobilizing for 2027. And you had the PDP and Labour Party also making noises about the next election. The political game is definitely on.
Always seems to be. We also noted the vice chancellor at FUOYE praising Tinubu's student loan scheme.
Right. That's a big policy initiative.
Getting positive feedback from the education sector itself, it seems.
Yeah, the student loans aim to open up higher education access. So hearing university leaders speak positively suggests they see it as, potentially helpful for students and enrollment.
You mentioned him earlier in the regional context,
Yeah.
but Festus Keyama's appointment as chair of West African ministers, that fits under politics too, right? Nigeria playing a role regionally.
Precisely. It underlines Nigeria's engagement and influence within ECOWAS, showing leadership across different areas.
And Senate President Akpabio wants more funding for the National Space Agency, thinking long-term, technology, science.
Yeah, investing more in space tech could bring benefits down the line. Things like better satellite communication, environmental monitoring, agriculture support, even security. It's about building future capacity.
We also saw President Tinubu inaugurating the board for the NNPCL, the national oil company.
Mm-hmm. Given how vital oil and gas is, formalizing the leadership structure of the NNPCL is always significant. It sets the governance framework.
Okay. And then on the state level, lots of movement. Reports that Governor Eno in Akwa Ibom is planning to defect to the APC.
Hey, that was in the mix.
And McKing for president, posters seen in Kano. He's PDP from Oyo State. Plus, Governor Adi Anabia saying he won't back Tinubu's re-election.
It just shows how fluid things are, doesn't it? Potential shifts in alliances, governors making their positions known, opposition figures testing the waters. The state-level political scene looks very active.
Definitely dynamic. Okay, let's move on. But it's a tough area, security and justice. Unfortunately, some quite concerning headlines here, too.
Sadly, yes. The report from Benue State about an ambush, bandits killing 2 soldiers and others, it's a stark reminder of the serious, ongoing security problems in some regions.
And the National Security Advisor claiming 13,500 terrorists and criminals killed in 2 years.
Yeah, that's a big number. Though with figures like that, it's always important to understand, the context, how they're counting, the source.
And the overall impact, right?
Exactly. Transparency is key when those kinds of statistics come out.
The DSS also put out a statement about IPOB and ESN saying they're illegal and can't be compared to Amotekun in the Southwest.
Right. That seems to be reinforcing the government's official position, drawing a clear legal line between different types of regional security outfits based on their origins and how they operate with the state.
On the justice side, a tough sentence reported. 2 university graduates jailed for 30 years for kidnapping in Ekiti.
30 years. That sends a very strong message, doesn't it? It underscores how seriously the courts are treating kidnapping, which is still a major fear in many places, hopefully a deterrent.
But some positive news from Lagos. Over 120 convictions for sex offenders in just 1 year.
That is positive. It suggests real effort and progress by the justice system in Lagos to tackle sexual violence and get convictions.
And the Navy reported a big drop, 40% in stowaway incidents on the waterways.
That's good news for maritime safety and security. A 40% drop suggests maybe better patrols, better security measures are working.
Now, this one was really strange and sad. The police identifying the father of that murdered student in Oyo State as a serial offender himself.
Yeah, that's deeply disturbing. Just adds another tragic layer to an already awful situation. Raises some very difficult questions.
Customs had a huge win, though, seizing N$3.2 billion worth of fake drugs in Apapa.
Massive. Stopping that amount of counterfeit medicine from getting out there is vital work. It highlights the scale of the problem, but also the importance of customs' role in protecting public health.
And that long-running PNID legal case saw some movement. Nigeria apparently got back a $200 million bond and a $10 million award.
Yeah, and they're going after prosecution costs, too, from some Irish firm involved.
So, slow progress, but progress nonetheless in that fight.
It seems so. Recovering that money represents real steps forward in overturning that huge original arbitration award. Shows they're still pursuing it vigorously.
Despite a court deciding not to stop it, the Opohobokun's coronation in Ijesland went ahead, but under tight security.
The tight security suggests maybe authorities were worried about potential trouble or protests, even without a court order to halt it, just being cautious for a major traditional event.
Elsewhere on security, police in Niger State arrested people for counterfeit currency and illegal guns.
Both very serious threats. Fake money damages the economy. Illegal guns fuel crime and violence. Standard but important police work.
In the FCT, 56 inmates were released, but 33 Shiites were convicted.
Seems like just updates on the routine workings of the justice and prison system there. Releases happen, convictions happen.
The Niger State government warned its local governments about taking out loans for projects, trying to keep finances in check.
Sounds like it. A sensible move, really. Trying to stop local councils getting buried in debt they can't handle. Fiscal responsibility.
Sokoto State, though, donated 140 patrol vans to security agencies. That's a big practical boost.
Oh, yeah. Very practical. Having enough vehicles is essential for police and others to actually do their jobs effectively, respond quickly.
A worrying one from Kebbi. 5 arrested for allegedly diverting N$184 million worth of agrochemicals.
That's serious corruption. Stealing resources meant for farmers, especially on that scale, hits food production hard. Needs accountability.
And sadly, another crime report. Gunmen attacking an Abuja estate, injuring guards, robbing people.
Just underscores the ongoing fear of violent crime in cities, doesn't it? The need for better security in residential areas.
Okay, let's shift gears to social and humanitarian issues. A striking figure here. 52,000 Nigerians reportedly moved to the UK in 2024.
52,000, that's a lot of people.
It really is. What drives that, do you think?
Well, likely a mix of things, isn't it? Economic pressures at home, looking for better opportunities, education, maybe family links. It's a significant trend, worth understanding the why.
Also saw a Nigerian jailed in the US for a $1 million scam.
Unfortunately, those stories do damage Nigeria's image internationally. Highlights the ongoing battle against fraud, especially cybercrime.
There was a recommendation about Ghana covering costs for repatriating someone's remains. Olin Rawaju.
Ah, yes. That points to, cross-border cooperation, governments working together even in sad circumstances involving their citizens abroad, humanitarian diplomacy.
Some really good news from Cross River State. Governor Otu restoring power to 2 areas after 11 years without electricity.
11 years. Wow. That must be absolutely life-changing for those communities. Power is just so fundamental. Incredible news for them.
And Kano State government stepping in to pay N$2.24 billion in fees for 84 students stuck in Cyprus.
That's a huge commitment. Shows they're really looking out for their students abroad, getting them out of a difficult situation. Commendable.
The First Lady, Oluwimaipi Tubu, donated N$100 million for creative education and plans humanitarian work in Abia.
Yeah, those kinds of initiatives, philanthropy focused on specific areas like arts education or helping vulnerable groups, they can make a real difference on the ground.
An interesting suggestion from a former judge. Use Mbifil's sieged houses as shelters.
Huh. That's creative thinking. It does raise that interesting question, doesn't it? How best to use assets recovered from corruption to benefit society?
Lagos State reported giving out N$2.6 billion to over 8,000 vulnerable residents. Direct support.
Social safety nets like that are crucial, providing that direct cash can be a lifeline for people really struggling.
Sadly, though, reports of food poisoning deaths in Katsina and a fire destroying food supplies at a jetty in Bayelsa.
Yeah, tragic incidents. They remind you of the constant risks around food safety and how easily accidents can cause major losses, especially of essential goods like food. Need for prevention.
Columbia State allocated N$353 million for an abattoir and livestock market. Infrastructure investment.
Good move. Proper facilities like that, it helps the local economy, improves hygiene standards in the food chain, boosts trade. Solid investment.
Right. Let's look quickly at science and technology now. Some interesting bits here, too.
Definitely. INA, the Electoral Commission, saying they plan to look into using AI in elections.
AI in elections. How might that work?
Well, potentially things like data analysis, maybe logistics planning, perhaps even monitoring misinformation.
Yeah.
It could improve efficiency, accuracy, but obviously needs careful thought.
We mentioned Akpabio wanting more funding for the space agency earlier. That fits here, too.
Yes, emphasizes that push for long-term tech development, building Nigeria's own capabilities in space science.
Lagos is apparently scaling up healthcare digitization, rolling out electronic medical records more widely.
That's key for modernizing healthcare. EMRs mean better patient info, potentially better care, more efficient hospitals, good data for public health planning, a really important step.
And the Did You Know feature highlighted something called maggot debridement therapy.
Yes. Using maggots for wound cleaning. Sounds grim, but apparently effective. There was a story about someone avoiding amputation because of it.
Wow. And it also mentioned owls turning their heads almost all the way around. You find fascinating things in the news sometimes.
You really do. MDT shows how medicine can be innovative, sometimes in surprising ways. And the owl fact, just cool natural science, adds a bit of color.
Less positively, though, an NRC worker caught stealing railway signal cables.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And a Rising Stars basketball championship planned for July. Good for youth sports.
Definitely. Grassroots tournaments like that are vital for finding and developing young talent.
And Indomie celebrating its fan club's 20th anniversary.
20 years. Shows how embedded that brand is, doesn't it? Building that kind of loyal following is quite something.
Okay, last section. Other notable items, just a few quick ones. Governor Zulum back in Marte, happy with FG support.
That suggests some level of cooperation and maybe progress on the security front in Borno, which is always significant.
The East-West Road completion target, still December, with a section opening soon.
That road is crucial for the Niger Delta. Finishing it would be a massive boost for transport and the economy there. Long overdue.
Former President Jonathan commented on Western oil firms exploiting weak laws in the past. Historical perspective.
Yeah, a reminder of why strong regulation is so important, especially when dealing with natural resources, to make sure the country benefits fully.
We also saw training for Sharia judges in Jigawa, Bauchi working with Firma on roads, NOA warning students in Gombe about exams and drugs,
Uh-huh.
Kwara Emir wanting an army base near Kaninji Park,
Mm-hmm.
OSGPRF holding promotion exams. Just lots of routine but important state and agency activities.
Exactly. Shows the day-to-day business of governance, education, security, administration happening all over.
And finally, a comment from Turkey's minister about families being key to development. An observation that Tinubu listens but follows his own mind.
Little insights into perspectives.
Plus Germany's founding in 1949 for today in history, and a Lucille Ball quote, "You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world."
Huh. A good quote to end on. That self-belief she talks about probably needed to tackle the kinds of challenges we've just discussed.
Wow. Okay. That was quite the tour through just one day of a Nigerian news headlines. It really does show the sheer range of things happening, doesn't it? Economy, politics, security, social issues, tech. It's complex.
It absolutely is. And look, this is just a snapshot from May 23rd. We really hope that you, listening, will maybe pick one or two of these stories that caught your ear and dig a little deeper. There's always more beneath the surface.
Definitely. And maybe that leaves us with the final thought for you today.
Yeah.
Think about how all these different pieces, the economy, the politics, the security challenges, even the social shifts, how might they all be connected?
Yeah.
What bigger picture, what overall direction for Nigeria might these headlines hint at when you look at them all together? Something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining us on The Deep Dive.